Saving Private Ryan was a great film. It instigated a lot of interest in D-Day and the Battle of Normandy. Spielberg had wanted to show the drama of D-Day, and Omaha Beach was the obvious choice. It's a shame though that with 34,000 men coming in onto the beach on D-Day, there were 34,000 stories that could be told, and he chose to make a fictitious story about a real family. Now, there were parts of the film which were based on reality. The first 15 minutes showed a realistic depiction of the action on Omaha Beach. Veterans that have seen the film say the only thing that was missing was the smell. Now, the Ryan family was based on a real family. They were called Niland, not Ryan. Just like in the film, there were 4 brothers. One was shot down over the Pacific. 3 came into Normandy. 2 of those were killed, but there was no Captain Miller sent to find the survivor. Now, the Niland brothers will be the subject of another video, so subscribe to be kept up to date. Now, another real event was shown later on in the film, and we're going to see where that happened. Now, the fictional character Private Ryan and the real character Francis Niland were in the 101st Airborne, they were paratroopers. Now, the actions of the paratroopers was well covered in the Band of Brothers, where it shows us their training coming into Normandy and then going right up to Berchtesgaden. Of course, there are other members of the Airborne, the glider regiments. They go unsung. But it was just as dangerous coming into Normandy in a glider, but you didn't get the $50 a month extra. Now, the logistics of the itinerary that Captain Miller followed with his Rangers is, to say the least, unrealistic. Now, I'm driving from Omaha Beach to the Airborne area. It's going to take me 30 minutes using the new 4-lane highway. It took the men from Omaha Beach 4 days to join up with the Airborne at Ka, looks like cats, and the firm link-up wasn't done until the 12th, when Carentan was taken. Now, if you did want to send somebody to go and look for a paratrooper, they were just 6 miles from Utah Beach. But of course, that wouldn't make the same cinema. So Spielberg chose to send Rangers from Omaha Beach 20 miles to the Airborne. Now, the Americans used a British Horsa glider, which was a giant as big as a C-47, weighing in at 8 tons fully loaded. They also used the American glider, the Waco, that was like a flying tent. It was a steel tube frame covered in canvas, weighing 3 tons fully loaded. His full name was the Waco CG-4A, CG meaning cargo carrier. The name might lead you to think it was made in Waco, Texas. The name comes from the Weaver Aircraft Company from Ohio. They changed the name to Waco. The Waco had the advantage of being able to land in tight spots, whereas the 8-ton Horsa glider needed more room. The gliders were to bring men in who hadn't gone through parachute training, and jeeps, anti-tank guns and other supplies. The British Hamilcar could actually carry a tank. The American airborne missions on the night of the 5th to the 6th were Albany, Boston, Chicago and Detroit. Albany and Chicago were the parachute and glider missions of the 101st. Boston and Detroit were the 82nd paratroop and glider missions. The 101st paratroopers came across the Channel Islands to approach the peninsula from the west around 1:30. The gliders came in 2 hours later, following the east coast, then coming in from the east. Now, General Taylor was the commanding officer of the 101st, It had been his idea to equip the men with the crickets to help them recognise each other. Now he landed near Poopville, and they had to make his way to Ayville, where his HQ was going to be. Now Donld Pratt was Taylor's second in command. He was to command the supply train and the reserve troops. Pratt was to come in by sea, as many airborne troops did. He hadn't passed parachute training, but he got permission to come in by glider. His glider was named the Fighting Falcon and was to be piloted by Lieutenant Colonel Mike Murphy, who had been a stunt pilot and had trained many of the glider pilots. His co-pilot was Second Lieutenant John Butler. The glider carried some gasoline, communications equipment and a jeep. To protect Pratt, steel plates had been fixed in the floor of the Waco. The Chicago serial took off from Aldermaston, 52 C-47 Skytrains, each towing a Waco. The serial carried 155 troops, 16 57mm anti-tank guns, 25 small vehicles, 2.5 tons of ammunition, 11 tons of equipment including an SCR 499 radio set, and a bulldozer. Just like the paratrooper drop zones, the glider landing zones have been marked by pathfinders with Eureka beacons and lights. Now the beacons had been damaged, so they were out of order, but the lights were visible. Now the serials were not in V's like the paratroopers, but in line. That helped them keep together through the clouds. Now 2 planes with their gliders were shot down. One plane had left the formation and the glider landed near Graignes, where there was the massacre. The other 49 were on course for the drop zone. After unhooking from the tug plane, the gliders had to make a sharp turn. This caused many of the pilots to lose sight of the lights on the ground. Only 6 landed in the actual drop zone, 15 landed within a mile, and 10 landed at Les Forges towards the Graignes that way. But many crash landed. Now Murphy had been leading the serial, but as he's coming into land, a glider landed before him. He tried to pull up to slow down, but he ended up landing at higher speed than they should have been. And with the dew and the 1,000 pounds extra, plus they were going down the slope, the glider just skidded, smashed into the hedge. Now Pratt had been sat in the jeep during the flight, and the co-pilot and Pratt were killed in the crash. The pilot, Murphy, he survived, but he had 2 broken legs and a damaged knee. Murphy managed to get himself out of the glider and he hid in a ditch. He had a rifle and his pistol, and he took out any Germans that came close enough for him to hit. He was later taken to the hospital at Colombier-Château. He was evacuated just before the Germans bombed it on the 9th. In the film Saving Private Ryan, Captain Miller and the Rangers, they arrive at this scene and the pilot explains what happened. They changed the name to DeWitt for the pilot and Brigadier General Amand for Pratt. Now Pratt was buried in a parachute near the site of the crash, and he stayed where he was buried till the end of the war, when he was moved to Arlington.